Ren from Hallowed Be Thy Game, and today I'm going to share with you my thoughts on the Final Fantasy VII Remake DLC. Let's check it out. First off, I want to begin that a year ago this week, I released my review of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. The game took me away by storm. One of the riskiest remakes I can imagine, in that there is a voracious and very dedicated fan base, but Square Enix managed to change the formula, yet capture the magic with incredible character dialogue, powerful music recomposition, and capturing the essence of the timeless classic of Final Fantasy VII. So heading into the DLC, I had very high hopes, but I'm excited to tell you that the Yuffie DLC is a win. One of the few complaints I had about the Final Fantasy VII Remake was that some aspects of combat were a little obnoxious, mainly having to deal with aerial combat with a melee-based character. Luckily, the DLC tweaks and refines this combat formula to make an already incredible combat system just flow even better. Yuffie brings a lot of unique combat traits that I really just feel were lacking in the original. Absolutely shows that the development team has definitely found their step, and heading into the part 2 of the remake, I have very high hopes for the combat system. Yuffie's combos mixed with materia builds is just an absolute joy to experience. The weight and impact of combat is on point, and Yuffie is just straight up a blast to play. Now in this DLC, you're only able to control Yuffie directly. I'm going to be honest, it was very well tuned, and I love this approach because I was really wondering how much I was going to miss not being able to control 3 different characters and swap between them. Being able to flesh out the combat styles and the builds with the weapons mixed with just the incredible, nigh perfect materia system was a seamless transition. If you're interested in a more in-depth thoughts I have on Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat system, even though the video is a little dated and kind of hard for me to watch, it still just holds true. But honestly, for me, as someone who grew up with Final Fantasy VII, it's hard to relate to people just how impactful and how much I love that game. I mean, literally, me and my brothers kind of grew up with Cloud and the gang. It hits a really nostalgic mark for me. And the 7 Remake just stayed so true to the characters and the story and just the feel of Midgar that it's hard for me to kind of be impartial. However, I don't like paying for DLC, like, ever. And $20 I thought was going to be a little steep. I think the DLC was absolutely worth the money. Now, worth is in the eye of the beholder. But for me personally, I felt like since the story with Yuffie, we kind of join her at really the beginning of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and her story kind of coincides with the main story from 7 Remake, and we kind of meet and part with members of Avalanche throughout the entire run of the game. It really kind of gives you this nice perspective, as where like in the original game, Yuffie is kind of like, you know, just a missable character. But in her DLC, I really feel like it makes her a part of the overall narrative and the story. I feel it was very seamlessly integrated. And even though we only get like, gosh, I didn't time it, but I want to say like you can have like 10 to 15 hours of gameplay easily with just Yuffie's story and the combat challenges, that I feel like it was a complete experience to me. It didn't overstay its welcome. I feel like the challenge was definitely there. Being able to kind of be pushed to explore Yuffie's combat style and her toolkit was really just an absolute, kind of took me back a little bit, because just being able to make aerial combat not only not a problem, but really fun. The boss design for Yuffie was absolutely a blast, and doing some of those trials and summons, holy moly, they were fun, very challenging, and very fulfilling to be able to complete. And what I really appreciate is that if you complete the Yuffie DLC, it's not like you're just done with that. it offers a lot of incentives to go back to Final Fantasy VII Remake's base game and replay through it and just do the additional challenges that are offered. Very excited to go back and do that because I've been kind of homesick, for lack of a better word, for Final Fantasy VII and its characters. And I've been, it's been a year since I beat Remake, and I kind of want to go back, maybe try some harder difficulties and just re-experience that story again. Because again, if you have not played VII Remake or the DLC, and you're a fan of 7, I really feel that despite the liberties that were taken with the story directions, and I probably should do a video dedicated to the 7 Remake story as a whole. For me, as someone who's been a lifelong fan, I enjoyed it. I loved it, in fact. It swept me away and just kind of took me on this magical journey through nostalgia that I've been kind of intoxicated by. And really, there's a story arc for Yuffie and the cast of characters here that, in just that short runtime, it absolutely bought me in. I cared. There was moments where I laughed out loud. There was moments that just really hit me with an emotional gut punch. It hits hard. The music is still on point. And I also want to state that even though there's like a free upgrade, or there's an upgrade from if you have the PS4 version and you have a PS5, you can just upgrade the graphics. I want to say there is a noticeable graphical upgrade. And the performance of this is really just a showcase for the PS5. But also, I really felt that the PS4 Pro also ran incredible. So, again, I'm not a huge stickler or like a Digital Foundry type person. So, I'm pretty easy to please on it. The Yuffie DLC looks gorgeous. And just some of the particle effects and just the weight and sound design, it's excellent. So really, for me, if you're looking as to whether it's worth buying, it's $20 unless there's like a discount going. I don't ever know if this goes on discount. Probably not, if I had to guess. But really, for me, I felt it was worth the wait because there is a post-credit scene that kind of helps bridge the gap a little bit in between the Yuffie DLC and where we're heading to in part 2. It just got me in the palm of its hand, and I was there. I was just so invested. I hated to see it end, and for me, for a DLC story, for me to want to immediately replay it and experience it again, I think that kind of, is just a testament to how well it landed as not just a slapped-on DLC. It actually felt like it added some depth and weight to the story and kind of gives some implications of what we can expect going forward. I feel like the threats from each of the bosses, especially not just the big story bosses, which I feel are very, intriguing. I'm excited to see where they're kind of heading with some of these new story hints and stuff that they're leaning towards, but we'll get into that in future videos. But even just like the giant, kind of no-name bosses that really just were kind of a visual spectacle and just offered a lot of just room for the combat system to flex its muscles. Because if you're somebody who's only dabbled a little bit into 7 Remake, it's kind of easy to just mark it off as nothing more than just kind of a shallow cash-in. But really, there is a lot of depth to this combat system in 7 Remake. I absolutely love it. And the Yuffie DLC even smooths over some of the hard edges, and I'm really stoked to see how they kind of integrate what we see in the Yuffie DLC with 7 Remake Part 2, because I would love for that aerial combat to continue to be a joy to experience and fight with heading into Remake Part 2. And it's kind of interesting to me because, getting into YouTube, I'm a really small channel. However, even between YouTube and Twitter, the game I get the absolute most crap for is Final Fantasy VII. I mean, people love to hate this game. So it's kind of interesting to me, like, I've always heard, like, hey, Final Fantasy VII is one of the most beloved and best games of all time. It's absolutely in my top 5. I freaking love it and the remake. But amongst my circle of friends, I'm like the only person who's really into Final Fantasy VII. Everybody else just, let's just say it's not for them. So for me, YouTube has been a great outlet for me to try to call in some Final Fantasy VII fans to nerd out with, because I freaking had a blast with the DLC and the remake. And honestly, the remake hit so hard for me. There's so many moments in the story that they just expound on, and not necessarily add to, but they just give so much life and personality. You know, just being able to see the interactions between Cloud and Tifa, Aerith, Barret. Oh my God, even the members of Avalanche. Like, I mean, the nostalgia was so thick at times, I had to almost like try to just blast it away from my face. I mean, it was intoxicating. And for me, I was kind of interested to see how the Yuffie DLC, you know, even though we get a new character added and kind of new people to care about and such like that, I was like, how can you really make it better or get me some buy-in? And I want to say that the way the story is laid out, I mean it, I cared. And this DLC hits hard, which is interesting because Yuffie is not someone you feel like there's a lot of emotional depth to, but being able to experience this very difficult and trying and dangerous story with a character we kind of grew up with and we care about, and you know, they're carefree and they're young and we can kind of see them grow and mature a little bit in a world that is a lot bigger than them. I love that. Not just was there a lot of fun to be had with the gameplay and progression and all the VR, and let me just say the freaking mini games in this. I wasn't really too big into any of the mini games in the original 7 outside of snowboarding, but my God, the like friggin' the tactical turn-based like strategic board game, the name is slipping me right now, please forgive me. I had an absolute blast. I typically, in games nowadays, try to complete mini games for any types of rewards or bragging points. I don't know. But I just had straight up a lot of fun with this. And I really hope it's continued and expounded on in the remake part 2. It was a lot of fun, a really good challenge, and I was like actively seeking out how to upgrade my units, and a lot of times I was like, you know, I should probably get back to the main story, but I was just having so much fun with the mini games in this. So it was really good, and the new musical jingles for finding the turtles or whatever they are, oh my God, I loved it. And like this is such a little stupid thing, but the fact it plays the jingle out of the controller, I freaking love that. And I was sad like how short it plays, because when I was first playing I had headphones on. I was like, is my phone making a weird noise? And when I finally figured out what was happening with my controller, I don't know, I nerded out a little bit. That was a lot of fun to me. So it just, I don't know, it gets this fanboy uber hyped. And as excited as I am for Final Fantasy 16, I really can't freaking wait for more 7 Remake Part 2. Oh my God. But anyways, that's just me. Have you played 7? And if so, have you played the Yuffie DLC yet? Let me know down in the comments what you think. Also, what's your favorite Final Fantasy? I always love hearing about that. But anyways, thank you so much. Like this video if you liked it. Thank you so much for subscribing. It helps out the channel a lot. And I'll see you all next time.